you notice I said us, need to get out of the way and ask the young people with the energy and say, what do you want us to do to work with you? I mean, that's a pledge, okay? It really is. It is our responsibility to hand on a hospitable, bountiful planet that we inherited from the generations that came ahead. And that is a moral and ethical and spiritual concern. So.
And I will say, if there's anyone here that belongs to a faith tradition or whatever would like to know more about us, I do have information. And I also have our little congregational membership kit thing that I'm advertising for when congregations join, they get stuff to support your ministry. So I've been making these gift bags, so don't look too closely at the quality. I'm getting better though. No, they're actually pretty cute. They're gift bags you can use instead of wrapping paper. I have these little pollinator seed packets, and we're also doing LED light bulbs. So when your congregation joins us with a donation, then they get stuff to support their work. So it's a nice thing to do. So, but we also, just want to engage with individuals as well. And you don't have to be religious. You really don't. Spiritual is fine. It's great.
Thank you.
My name is Senna Wazer, and I'm the co-director of communications for Sunrise, Connecticut. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got into environmental conservation, about the Sunrise movement and the Green New Deal. When I was 5 years old, my parents happened to have this book at a secondhand store. They brought it home and read it to me. This is a true story of a whale named Ibis. In the story, Ibis got caught in a fishing net, but she was really lucky, and she got rescued. At 5 years old, I loved that story. So I asked my parents to read me the author's note. And the author's note said that most whales don't get freed. They die. At 5 years old, I was horrified. So I cried and I whined for 3 days until my dad couldn't take it anymore and said, well, if you don't like something, then do something about it. So I did. I started working to protect whales. And I've spent the last 9 years of my life giving presentations about whales in schools, at historical societies, and at other events, educating the public at events, showing environmental movies, and lobbying public officials for help with ocean conservation. But then, in October of 2018, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released a report. Their report said that we needed to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. That 2 degrees Celsius of warming would be catastrophic, and that we had 12 years to do this. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I didn't know what to do. In 12 years, I'm going to be 27, and my sister's going to be 25. And at that time, I still want a safe future for us and for all the other young people out there. And then I found the Sunrise movement. Sunrise's main goal is to stop climate change and create millions of good jobs in the process. We are a movement of young people, but we work with people of all ages and from all walks of life. The three main ways that we do this is first, by making climate change an urgent priority across America. Second, ending the corrupting influence of fossil fuel CEOs on our politicians. And third, electing leaders who stand up for the health and well-being of all people. I'm now the co-director of communications for Sunrise, Connecticut. And this is myself and another hub member at a recent rally speaking about climate change. And this is us at another lobbying event at the Capitol. I help plan events, communicate between hubs and with partner organizations, and gain new members. But I don't want to talk about where we've been or where I've been. I want to talk about where we're going. Our next big action is our Change the Debate initiative. 2020 is our last chance to have a politician in the White House that can truly take action on climate change. After that, they won't truly have enough time in that 12-year span to do something. Because of this, Sunrise launched Change the Debate. Our goal is to have the largest ever demonstration at a primary debate to demand that the 2020 candidates do something about climate change. Our three main asks of the candidates are: first, that they reject fossil fuel money; second, they support a climate debate; and third, they make the Green New Deal a day one priority. Our first action is on June 26th, when we will host watch parties all over the country to watch the first Democratic primary and see what the different climate policies of the candidates are. Our second and main event is on July 30th and 31st, where we will attend the debate in Detroit, Michigan. If you want more information about either of these events, you can go to sunrisemovement.org, or I'd be happy to talk to you about it after this as well. Now I want to talk a little bit about the Green New Deal, which is another one of the main things Sunrise is working on. For me, the Green New Deal is hope, because it presents a framework for how we can shift to a more sustainable country from the fossil fuel kind of based economy we're on now. I believe that we should all support it because it's currently the only bill that actually addresses the scope of the problem. It's not a specific policy, but rather a framework for how to become sustainable. And it gives each community the opportunity to use their own solutions that best address the climate crisis. But how do we get a Green New Deal? Like I said before, the 2020 election is coming up. And we don't just want to get a climate denier out of the White House. We want to elect a climate leader instead. Some politicians will say that small incremental changes are all that is possible. But that time is over. Perhaps if we had acted upon climate change in 1960, when we first identified that CO2 levels were rising. Perhaps if we acted upon climate change in 1979, when we determined that doubling CO2 in the atmosphere would raise temperatures 3 to 8 degrees Fahrenheit. Perhaps if we acted upon climate change in 1989, when President George H.W. Bush promised to act upon climate change. Perhaps if we had taken action in the past, we wouldn't have to take such drastic action now. But we didn't. And now it's a huge weight hanging over me, my generation, and future generations. But we are here to get rid of that weight. To tell public officials that even though they may think the kind of climate action we are asking for is impossible, we know that it is not only possible, but necessary. We will not take no for an answer. And that is why I'm asking you to join me, join Sunrise, join young people and others concerned by climate change to change the debate at the Democratic primaries. Join us at watch parties for the first Democratic primary on June 26th. And then join us in Detroit for the second Democratic primary on July 30th and 31st. Because together we will change the debate. Together we will elect climate leaders to Congress. And together we will elect a climate leader to the White House.
Thank you, everyone. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, one of the sponsors was actually the Suffield Town Hall. And although First Selectman Melissa Mack could not be here tonight, she wrote out a statement that I'll read for us now. Since I started in 2015, people have come to me with great ideas for improving Suffield's recycling, sustainability, and general environmental efforts. They have been on my long list of things to do, but with limited personnel and resources, we don't seem to get to these items, which has been frustrating for me. I'm planning on reaching out to those people who have contacted me before to determine current level of interest in serving as a volunteer on an environmental or sustainability committee. If there is interest, I will come to the Board of Selectmen to form the committee and to create its mission statement, to consider and to make recommendations, including plans for execution related to environmental sustainability for the town of Suffield. Topics to be considered include waste reduction, such as composting, banning single-use plastics, recycling, including collection bins and mattress recycling, beautifying for cleanup days, environmental protection issues like household hazardous waste day, road salt options, stormwater management, medication disposal, and land preservation, and education, campaigns like Trash to Art, Getting to the Roots, and recycling in the lunchroom, working in agri-science and composting, etc., and anti-fracking ordinances, etc. If anyone is interested in participating, please have them contact Kim Worthington, kworthington@suffolkct.gov, who will be helping to organize this undertaking. And again, this statement is also on that table over there. So, thank you everyone for coming and speaking tonight. I hope this has been helpful to all of you, and I hope that you leave this room more ready to combat climate change than when you entered. I hope that you learned something, but more than hoping, I want you to act. And whether that action comes in the form of following, supporting, and joining organizations like 0 Hour, going to marches and rallies and studying science, teaching others about environmental hazards, understanding the broader impacts in the world and doing research, following and supporting legislation, getting your church and congregation to join the Interreligious Eco-Justice Network, learning to be good stewards of the land, or supporting the Green New Deal resolution and environmental justice through our democracy and your voting habits. It's all relevant. It's not up to one person to fix the world's climate. It's up to all of us. This is actually a really important point because this is, if you can tell, was a pre-written conclusion I had. But that theme actually resonated throughout all of these presentations. We didn't coordinate this, actually. The world is out of its comfort zone, and we need to step out of ours and be the change the world needs. And as you've seen, there are many ways to do that. So, again, I encourage you to look at all the resources graciously laid out on the tables over there. I had no idea that was coming. And thank you all again for coming. And with the last few minutes we have, we can open it up to questions in the panel discussion, unless you guys need to get going. Unless you guys need to get going. So yeah, we can open up to questions.
This is not so much a question, a quick commercial. So, and I think it's very relevant and fits with what you folks have done here tonight. At the Newington UCC Church, we're going to show 2 weeks from tonight from Paris to Pittsburgh. And my hope, because that's following another, we've already had a meeting about, opening up a bunch of different environmental issues. So my hope is to come out of that with some action. We're going to have sign-up sheets. This is very helpful tonight because I'm going to take some of this and consolidate it into some handouts and say, okay, you can do this, this, or this. What are you going to do? If we actually get some action right then and there out of that meeting in response to the film and things that have already been percolating. Next week, June 19th, 7 to 9 at Congregational Church, UCC Church in the center of Newington. It's called Church of Christ Congregational Newington, but it's UCC, Newington. We're just like Baptists, only use more water.
Just really quick, one thing is you make sure you take the greenhouses of worship. It's a program that IREJN started a few years ago, and it's really a guide, a help for congregations to go through to look at how do you make your building and how do you make your life together greener. And actually, Second Baptist Church is a level 2 greenhouse of worship, and I think Sunday, right?
Yeah,
Somebody coming Sunday?
Yeah, I run the green team over at First Church, and I started in January, and we are becoming a level 1 in 2 weeks, on the 16th.
On the 16th.
So we did it in 5 months. So.
Yeah, it really is, and it's kind of a motivator, and it gives you ideas and other things. So if you're within religious communities and want to be part of that, pick up a brochure. Yeah.
You showed the map of the countries of the world that have the highest carbon dioxide levels.
Yes, you do it.
Right, and it showed the United States and then all of Canada, the very top part, as being at the most extreme. And I wondered, is that because it's spreading to the United States? Because it's hard to believe that the top part of Canada is being very low, much occupied. So I just
Right, that's a really good point. I think just for, it's just shaded in for the whole country basically, but that's also has to do with how the atmosphere circulates. And studies have actually shown that Canada is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the world, maybe not in very good.
Is that because of us?
It's because of-
Canada aren't even inhabited.
Because of all of it, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say one of the big problems in Canada is their, good grief, their tar sands. Thank you, tar sands couldn't take it. They've been clearing boreal forests at the rate of 1,000 acres, 2,000 acres a day. That oil that will be coming down the XL pipeline is from tar sand that's coming from boreal forests, and they're causing all sorts of problems.
Yeah, if you want to freak yourself out, take a look at some of those images. They are very startling.
Wow.
Not could be done on a per capita basis, where you've got very few people living, the few that are consuming, make the red parts on that. Because I'm not there. It's not on per capita for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's just, it incorporates all of the CO2 emissions, like every part of people's lives. I do, for fun, I want to point out, I saw in this picture that someone put up, that was Savannah's head. I think it's really funny. Yeah.
My name's Art Thomas, I'm with the Sierra Club, and we're right now working on our strategic plan for the next couple of years and how we can direct the Sierra Club to continue growing and supporting the communities and the like. But we are, to a large extent, kind of representative of the crowd here. We tend to be older, and we don't have the youth engagement and level of participation. And one of our big goals is to try to reach out and bring in, basically unify our organization so we actually represent society and society's interests, and we're missing the youth group. And to Tom's point, how do we do that? If you can give some pointers as to how we can engage and not be isolated, older, and kind of moved off into the sunset, but really
That's a
creating
really
the
good
next
point.
generation.
I actually emailed, because I was having a difficult time reaching that demographic to advertise the symposium as well. I emailed the principal at the high school, asking if he would make the high school sponsor, advertise it there. Never heard back, but does anyone else have any ideas?
I mean, I was just gonna go the social media route. I mean, I'm not really on it myself that much, but I know I'm going to be a teacher. Let me tell you, your kids are all on their phones all the time. So, I would say social media for like advertising. I don't know if you guys do like, I don't know, maybe just more events that would get their attention, but I don't even know how to do that. Yeah.
I mean, to Art's point, what's interesting is that, you have all this passion and energy, the Sierra Club has all this experience and sophistication and resources, and actually gets a lot done and has a lot of credibility too. So somehow we have to find ways to work together and be successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, when I think like a big part of it is just going, like if you can go into the schools and go in there and talk to them, which is something I do a lot of. I go into high schools, I go into middle schools, I go into elementary schools, and just talk to them and explain what help you want, or what you want them to do, how you want them to be engaged. And I think that they are, they're excited to do that stuff. And then also, like, if you have, like, training programs or something specifically for them, I think that's really helpful because, I think people my age, we want to go and we want to know how to become activists and know how to lobby and all that stuff. So I think if you can have those trainings and then, advertise them through social media and those kind of things and go into the schools, I think that's a really good way to engage.
If we design a lobby training for, as best we could for young people, we might remember what it used to be like. Something like that, if we said something like that to you and Savannah and Joe, would you guys be able to do something? And would you talk to us about what we think along here? We would have an idea of what we usually do, and you could tell us how things are more effective.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help.
I think various angles to help, especially today, our generation is here's a lot more about things like social and societal injustices, and it makes us care about it a lot more, to put a face or move people to it, to the cause. So I think it depends on how you approach it as well.
One thing I wanted to say, I'm also Sierra Club. I'm the Rick Hayes, where they said I'm sitting out here, and I'm the head of the Greater Hartford Group. By the way, we're having our picnic in Windsor, Northwest Park, 3:30 Saturday. Everybody's invited if they want to stop by and just talk to a few of us, or just kind of hang out and eat some food and just have a good time. But that wasn't what I was going to say. Now, if I remember what it was, Steve did a very good job of making us sound superhuman almost in terms of this. I think he oversold us one way, because he later said it, but I want to give credit because every one of those bills we worked on, and we did make significant contributions on a lot of them, there was anywhere from 4 to 20 different groups working with us. It's just like what we're talking about individually, we can only change our lifestyle, and then we get together to accomplish things, and that's what happens with Sierra Club. We get together. And another thing is, he's highlighted some of the things we've done nationally, whatever. It's a big organization nationally. We've got 3.5 million supporters and members in the United States. So every 100th person you see will have some affiliation with Sierra Club. But Sierra Club is a volunteer organization. We have nearly 40,000 members and supporters in Connecticut. We have 1 employee. So it's not like we're lavishly throwing tons of money. Yeah, we have some tons of money at the national level that can support us. But it's an organization for people who want to get involved and do things themselves and accomplish. And we're actually looking for people who have new ideas on how to do it, whether they're young people or even old guys like me. If you got a new idea we haven't used before, that's fine. But I think it's important to keep in mind, it's sort of like you hear, he talks about Sierra Club and all the things we've accomplished, and that's true. But it's not just because we threw tons of people and staff at it and everything else. So anyway, that's it.
Just 2 quick things. First, thank you so much to the panel, and thank you very much to the youth movement for joining this and your enthusiasm. It's fantastic to hear. Second, I'm kind of surprised it wasn't in Melissa Mack's letter or mentioned tonight, but the organization in Connecticut, volunteer certification in Connecticut, is called sustainablect.org. It's a partnership between Connecticut Conference of Municipalities and a number of philanthropic foundations, partnered with other resources like DEEP and Eversource and so forth through their efficiency programs. And it really is a municipal framework for becoming a sustainable community. There's 85 towns that have made the pledge so far. It's basically a successor program to the Clean Energy Communities program that had been around for about a decade. And I think that's what we want Melissa to advocate for with the selectmen, to make that pledge and start pursuing those actions. It's a menu of actions in a number of different categories. It's aspirational, it's difficult, but it doesn't have to be done in a year. And I think it would give Suffield a really important kind of focused, municipal focused effort to move in that direction. So if you haven't heard of it, it's worth looking at, and hopefully we'll hear more about it soon.
Actually, Melissa did send me to the CPACE event, so I did give her all the paperwork, and there's a list of 80 things to do.
Yeah.
She did say she wants to give it to the green team when she gets it formed.
What's the name of it again?
sustainablect.org. And it has things about, making municipal infrastructure more efficient, but also eco-justice issues, waste recycling. There's actions in 8 or 9 different categories, and ways to get certified as bronze, silver, gold, and so forth. And there's about 85 towns that have signed up so far.
Just one last question. By the way, social media does work. My daughter sent me the notice about this tonight, as well as saying yes to the reform letter for the bill in the Connecticut. These guys are active. If you look at the age of your crowd here, thank you guys for all doing this and beating over our heads, but is there, what I see is dueling movements, and it seems like there's so much thrust behind it, but the tentacles, even at the state level, certainly at the national level, it's not, you know, how do you harness that? And is there a voice in Connecticut that bridges all of this, that people can easily go to and get involved with? It just seems like, yeah, I'm wide open.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, you know, to Rick's point, you know, we're part of a coalition of environmental groups, and we all work closely together on legislative priorities, and they help each other out and make ourselves stronger that way. But there isn't like a central membership for those groups, so we were partnering with the League of Conservation Voters on the lobby day on Saturday with Sierra Club, right? And there were other folks there, and certainly, you know, 350.org was there with us as well. And there are other people in multiple organizations. Environmental groups have always been somewhat fragmented and narrowly focused, but collaborative.
Right.
And then
It's time to get
I
the
just see
camera
this
out
as
there,
another
you know?
collaborative opportunity.
This is the time to, you know, sunrise and what everybody's doing, fantastic movements. You know, how do we really put that together and be as effective as possible? I mean, is it?
Well, I think honestly, just the importance of plugging in with at least one environmental organization that is committed to action and advocacy will get you into this larger coalition that we're speaking of, because on Sunday night, the state budget was released, and the language for the plastic bag ban that was in that state budget was not what was expected. It was this language that everyone had testified against, and it wasn't what Senator Cohen had negotiated as of Friday afternoon. So it was a big surprise. Everyone goes to bed on Sunday and they're reading through like hundreds and hundreds of pages of budget to find out this wasn't what we wanted. And so every environmental organization sent out an alert on Monday morning and said, we have to fix this. This is not what we need. And so they got flooded with calls to the point where they introduced, called, voted, and passed an amendment to the state budget that did what Steve said in terms of the plastic bags. So that's the thing is, if you're plugged into at least one really good organization here in Connecticut, you're going to be part of the larger movement, because we all got our people, you know, calling and stuff like that. And you know, I think it's important that every group, because we need to work together, but there's a value in working specifically within your specific community. You know what I'm saying? So like I obviously work closely with all these different environmental organizations, but I focus on the religious communities. And even then, I'm also thinking about doing a green forum specifically for the Muslim community, specifically for the Jewish community, so they can talk about different issues that they face, you know, within the Muslim community, and also scheduling. I could probably do that in December, you know, like, but there are different things, like there's value in working within your community and building the momentum and then connecting. So I think as long as you connect with one really good, and there are so many good ones here, you know, and people are energized. Let me tell you, usually at the end of the legislative session, the environmental groups are like, and now they're like.
And you know, back in, when was the environmental summit? It was in March, or February? It was January, early in the year, I can't remember, it was at Trinity College. And so League of Conservation Voters and Sierra Club and others, a lot of organizations were represented at that. And that was where, you know, kind of the momentum for the legislative session kicked off.
I hear your point, though, in some ways. I took my daughter, who's now 5, to the protest in New York City when they were originally going in to negotiate. And 400,000 people showed up for that protest. They had expected 150,000. They shut the protest down because they couldn't handle the flow of people there. And since that's happened, I've been waiting for the next one. You know what I mean? I've been like, what's the next thing? How do we take this to the next level? Because the problem is sure as hell not over. You know, like how do we make it so it's not piecemeal? How do we get this huge media coverage that's all over the front page of the New York Times again and again and again, so we can scream and say, this is a massive problem. We need to be addressing this. You know, if you watch Greta Thunberg and you listen to what she's saying, you know, like this is something that should be front page news, and it's usually, you know, in an editorial section. Couldn't agree more, you know?
So, we are 2 minutes over, so if anyone would like to leave, you're welcome. Are there any last questions?